On the 26th of November 2008, as you just heard, a group of 10 terrorists attacked the city of Mumbai, what used to be called Bombay, in India. They broke up into teams to attack about a dozen different locations. One of those locations was the iconic, beautiful, 103-year-old Taj Mahal Palace Hotel in South Bombay. For 3 nights, 2 days, there was absolute havoc in that hotel. Guests were terrorized, people wounded, shot, killed. This group of terrorists with automatic weapons, plastic explosives and grenades in backpacks roamed freely through this old hotel. Many of us, many of you, witnessed or saw some of that coverage on television at home. Let's take a closer look.
The evening of November 26, 2008, was a typical busy Wednesday for the Taj. More than 500 guests were registered at the hotel. Another 500 to 600 were attending functions in banquet halls or sitting down to dinner in the hotel's 10 restaurants. Shortly after 9 p.m., an explosion rocked the Leopold Cafe just around the corner, less than 200 meters from the Taj. 2 young men pulled out automatic weapons and began firing. Crowds at the Gateway of India and along the street in front of the Taj panicked, many rushing the doors of the hotel. In the ensuing chaos, 2 heavily armed terrorists circumvented the metal detectors and entered the lobby. They were soon joined by the 2 attackers from the Leopold, who broke through a back door.
9:35 or 9:40 was the first call I got from one of my chefs. And I think some shooting is taking place. A person has been shot dead outside my restaurant. Then we heard another gunshot, and I told him on the phone only, I said, just close all the kitchens, all the restaurant doors.
They were banging the door. They were alerting everyone, come out, otherwise we'll shoot you. There were few guests who they were scared, and they came out by putting their hands up, and they started hitting them, they started harassing them. It was horrible.
The situation, the entire scenario was very scary. We couldn't judge at that time what is exactly happening in the hotel.
It was a literally war situation. You can hear grenade lobbing around. You can hear the gunshot also.
We did not know the scale of the attack. We did not know what exactly was going on, where they were at that moment. And there was total chaos. My colleagues were trapped with guests in various places, asking me what should we do next.
So picture what's happening inside that hotel. There are 500 guests who are registered at that hotel this night of 26th November. There are an additional 600 or so guests who are in various restaurants, attending various banquets and functions. There are about 600 or so staff members on duty that night. Young people, many of them very young, 20, 30-year-old. Some of them, these staff members had only been working for a few years at this hotel. Many of them fathers and mothers, the sole breadwinners in their families with children at home waiting for them. One of the things, we don't know a lot about the detail about what happened there, but one of the things we do know is that all 600 of these employees knew all the back routes. They knew the exits, they knew the entrances, they knew the hallways, and the kitchen galleys. In other words, they knew how to get out, and how to get out fast. All the research we have in psychology would tell us that the natural human instinct at a time of terror like this is to flee. So think about it, what you would do. So when I teach this case study at Harvard, I ask my students, I say, how many of these employees do you think fled, and how many of them do you think stayed? And they'll hazard guesses, and the maximum, they say, that would stay would be maybe a quarter, 150 or so. But that's the maximum. Everybody who can run away will run away. Well, the truth of the matter is that nobody ran away. They all stayed. In fact, some of them not only stayed, they helped guests out and came back in to help more guests. It's an amazing story. These are some of their stories.
The staff of the Taj stayed on duty throughout the siege, calming frightened guests and assisting in their rescue. Many even came back inside after leading guests out of the building. Members of the hotel's team of telephone operators, originally evacuated, voluntarily returned to their stations and stayed on all night.
They became the hub of communication at that point. They were the ones calling every single guest room, talking to the guests and telling them to stay in, don't step out, lock your door.
As the terrorists roamed the halls, telephone operators instructed trapped guests to pull their key cards to turn off the illuminated "Occupied" button in the hallway outside their doors.
The attack started at 9:30 in the evening. Till 4 o'clock they were answering guest calls. I think that speaks a lot for a hotel under attack.
Among the guests at the Taj that night were members of the Global Board of Directors and senior management team of Unilever, who had gathered along with their spouses to honor incoming and outgoing CEOs.
So we had this really elaborate 7-course meal, and that was sort of the setting, the mood. There was warmth, there was laughter, there was a perfect setting for a nostalgic farewell and a perfect setting for a nice welcome. And I heard what seemed to me, which is an untrained ear, like firecrackers in the hotel.
We started getting these text messages and phone calls. There were some gunmen on the loose. The only logical thing to do was to close the doors and just stay put.
Malika came to us and said, we think there's a problem. We're not sure what exactly it is, but I request all of you to be on the ground right now. The level of calm and composure that the staff displayed was amazing, was absolutely amazing, because they had the presence of mind to even advise us, saying, couples, please separate, don't stay at the same place, just be in different corners of the room.
65 lives at stake, so can't take a chance. So obviously we were in touch with security all the time and had a lot of alcohol in the room, so that helped a little.
This went on the whole night. We were on the floor with our hearts in our mouth, with debris falling all around us, the noises of firecrackers all around, and all through the staff kept their composure, kept coming to us saying, do you want some water, do you want something?
Well, I was scared, but there was something more important to be done.
And this went on till 4 or 5 in the morning when the room filled with smoke. So we had no choice but to find a way to escape.
The entire corridor outside the hall was on fire. There was no way we could get out. The fire guys were outside and they were dousing the fire on the 6th floor. And we happened to see Mr. Kang downstairs as well. So he sort of ushered the fire guys to us.
We sort of climbed onto the ledge and did some stuff which in today's normal day I wouldn't be able to do, but we sort of came onto the ledge, climbed down to the ladders which by then the fire brigade people had come. The staff insisted that we would go first, guests would go first. And they kept like that till all of us had come down, and then they all came down.
Well, in a way, because I was there, I was looking after the function, I was responsible. I could have been the youngest in the room, and I know at one point of time I was the youngest in the room, but I was still doing my job.
The easiest thing for our staff to do at that point in time was to drop whatever they were doing and run out of the hotel. Not one did that. Not one.
I come from an army background, not myself but my father, he retired as a general in the army. And he often used to say, when I was even appointed here as the general manager, he he used to often tell me that you are now like the captain of the ship. And I think that's the way you think, that you are the captain of the ship, and you have to be the last one to leave, and if it sinks, you sink with it.
At some point, our kitchen brigade decided that it looked like a lull in the thing, and they could be taken out from the back of the kitchen through the fire exit to the back road. And our chefs had formed a human chain to escort people in the darkness down those stairs. And as hundreds of them were being evacuated, somehow 2 of those terrorists got to know that this was happening. And the terrorists arrived there and saw these chefs lined up, herding people away, and there was mayhem. They cut loose, and that's where we lost our biggest numbers there. We had 5 or 6 of our chefs gunned down, but they took the bullets.
Said that they risked their lives in just making sure the guests were safe.
I don't think we would have made it out of the hotel without the support, the assurance, the constant service orientation that the staff provided, without doubt, which is why we will continue to be so grateful to them.
I can't explain it. There were no manuals, there were no instructions for what should be done under the circumstances. So what seems to have happened is individuals, from the waiters to the managers of the restaurants, all had this goal of let's get the guests to safety.
To reiterate, 500 registered guests, 600 guests in restaurants and banquets like that Unilever Boer event that you just heard about. 600 employees. So that's 1,700 people that night. Of those 1,700, over 1,600 escaped safely. Only 34 people died. Of those 34, fully half were staff members of the hotel. So when we were working on this case study, I asked senior management how this happened, why this happened, what explains the behavior of their staff. And these are young people. Malika Jagat, the banquet manager for the Unilever event, whom you saw speaking, 24 years old. What explains it? And you heard, they can't explain it. Senior management, Mr. Ratan Tata, head of the Tata Group of companies, they own the Taj hotels, he couldn't explain it. So I teach this at Harvard. I bring this case study back, and I teach this at the Harvard Business School as a case study of leadership from below. You know, we teach usually about leadership as being something from the top that filters down. This is leadership from below. It's just amazing. And I ask my students, how do you explain it? And they have plausible explanations for the behavior of the employees. Some of them say, well, it must be the culture, the national culture of India. You know, there must be something in the value system there that explains it. And in fact, there is. It turns out that there is a value or a belief that says a guest is to be treated like God. When a guest enters your home, treat her or him like God. Atiti Devo Bhava in Sanskrit. Other students say, no, it's not national culture, it's corporate culture. If the Taj Hotels is owned by this family, the Tata Group, they have a long history in India of very benevolent human resource policies, a family of integrity in their business dealings. It's the corporate culture. And others say, no, it's not that. This happened at a hotel. It's the industry culture. It's hospitality. Employees are trained to serve customers. So that's what's going on. All of these are very plausible. So along with another colleague, I decided to go back into the Taj Hotel company records to try to understand their human resource policy. Who were these people? Who were this staff? Where did they find them? How did they recruit them? How did they motivate them? How did they train them? And I learned lots of really, really intriguing things. Let me share, in the interest of time, just 3 of them with you. First, about recruiting. You know, they recruit their frontline employees from high schools, not from the major cities, not from Bombay or Delhi or Calcutta or Madras. They recruit them from small towns. Haldia, Chandigarh, Nashik, Tiruchirappalli, small towns. And they recruit students, graduating students, for attitude, not grades. They ask their headmasters or their teachers, who are the students that you teach who have the most respect for older people, for their parents, for the teachers? They're not looking for the students who do the best in grades, but rather for attitude. Then training. This is fascinating. You know, you've heard of brand ambassadors. Lots of companies, many organizations perhaps that you represent, train their frontline staff to be ambassadors for the brand, for the company. You know what they do at the Taj hotels? They train their frontline employees to be ambassadors for the customer, for the guest. It's very different. It's counterintuitive. They call them guest ambassadors. They believe frontline employees should be the voice of the client, of the customer, of the guest to the company. And third, and perhaps most importantly, their motivation system, their reward system, incentives, is not just monetary. They pay about average, little above average in that hotel sector in India. But they reward people with recognition, personal recognition. So when an employee does something that delights customers and the guest writes a note, within 48 hours that employee is recognized. 48 hours. They don't have to wait for a Diwali or a Christmas bonus. It happens within 48 hours. Amazing. In fact, they won the International Hermes Award for an innovation in human resource management for this STARS program. So let me close by asking you to think a little bit about the lessons that you take away from this company far away on the other side of the world, the things that we can learn here in America, that we can bring home, that we can scale to American businesses, American organizations. Things like the way customers are treated, building a customer-centric, guest-centric corporate culture, organizational culture. Rethinking the relationship, the contract between employer and employee. And finally, let me close by saying this is an amazing, inspirational story that something that was supposed to be a symbol of terrorism is today a beacon of hope. Thank you.